Novak Djokovic is not playing in Canada, and now, as of yesterday, he's pulled out of Cincinnati. What does this mean for the U.S. Open? I'm going to tell you all about how I feel about that, but first, this video is brought to you by Rally Tennis. Rally Tennis is a new mobile app that makes it easy to play tennis in your area, whether you want to compete or just train, and creating an account is free. Just head over to rallytennis.com or search for Rally Tennis in the App Store. And if you sign up and use Gill Gross as your referrer, you'll also get $10 towards your account. So this is what Novak posted on social media the other day. He said, "Dear Nole fam, I wanted to share with you that I'm taking a bit longer to recover after quite a physically taxing journey from the Australian Open up to Tokyo. Sadly, this means that I won't be ready to compete in Cincinnati this year, so I'll be turning my focus to the US Open and spending more time with my family. Can't wait to see you in New York soon. Heart emoji." Well, the context of this, obviously looking very physically and emotionally drained at the tail end of the Olympics, pulled out of his mixed doubles match at the end there, citing a shoulder injury, but also saying in press that he has not just one, but multiple injuries that he's dealing with right now, and clearly needs more time to heal. Now, he didn't directly reference his injuries in the statement, but my bet would be that he just didn't want to cite the injury specifically because he didn't want to be overly dramatic. He didn't want to show any unnecessary vulnerability and would rather just be vague and just say that he wants to physically recover more. But I imagine if he is going to take the lengths to pull out of Cincinnati, what this means is that he will not have any U.S. Open warm-up. And the first match he plays since the Olympics will be the first round of the U.S. Open, which is pretty unconventional, and I don't think there's much of an argument to say that it is ideal. I think certainly it's not ideal, and if it were ideal, then he would do this by choice. So again, I don't see any argument that it is a position that Djokovic wants to be in or would like to be in, but the reality of it is he is surely just not ready to play right now and is prioritizing recovery, which, by the way, is most definitely the wise decision. And if you have to make a choice between recovery and form, building form, recovery 7 days out of the week. 7 days out of the week, every single day, you choose recovery over playing yourself into form, especially when I think that deadline of when Djokovic would need to be in peak flight, that deadline doesn't come on the first day of the U.S. Open or even your second match or your third match at the U.S. Open. You probably don't need to be feeling at your 100% best until the first weekend or probably past Labor Day into the second week. Let's face it, Djokovic is not going to be facing opponents in the first couple rounds, barring unlucky draw with a really unusually dangerous floater. Djokovic is probably not going to be asked to play his very best tennis in his first couple matches, and if he's at 80% or 90%, he should be able to get through those tests just fine. So the important part is that, first of all, he's recharged enough emotionally and physically that he can get to the finish line of the U.S. Open, and that he'll have the juice and he'll have what it takes to give it his 100% by the time he's at the end of the tournament facing opponents who are going to push him. So it's not ideal, but it's almost definitely the right decision, and you'll see it as a common theme on just my channel and my commentary that when it comes to player scheduling decisions, I'm almost always going to default to whatever they say is best, and they know better than any outsider trying to formulate any sort of opinion on the decision. So full marks on the decision. It's almost certainly recovery, almost definitely more important than building form, and especially given that week one of the tournament, he probably won't need his best. Plus, if you walk around the grounds the week before the U.S. Open, you'll find a lot of great players playing very high-intensity practice sets that week. It does not simulate a match fully, but he's going to have, I assume he'll just ramp up the intensity of his practice sets in the week leading up to the U.S. Open, and you get to play. It's a little bit nicer than Wimbledon. You get to play on the real courts, on the big stadiums, so you really do get to become accustomed to the U.S. Open conditions to the fullest extent. I don't think you can. No, I think they let you practice on ash as well. It's not open to fans, but I think they let you practice on all the courts. I do think it would have been good for him to play some lower stress matches. It's one of my takeaways here. One of the things, just reflecting on the position that Djokovic is going to be putting himself into, going into the U.S. Open with no warm-ups. The thing that I think he'll really miss is he doesn't get the opportunity to play some lower stress matches. If you go back all the way to Wimbledon, really, every single match that Djokovic has played, he's played with the weight of history on his shoulders. And that can get pretty exhausting. And I imagine it would be nice for Djokovic in a perfect world, to just be able to play some matches where he just doesn't feel that weight and he can kind of loosen up a little bit and try some things and just feel the ball without that pressure on him. Now, he might be afforded that privilege if he's able to build large leads in the early rounds at the U.S. Open, but it might not be the same. And I think it would have been really good for him to play Cincinnati and to just kind of enjoy himself on the court without having to worry about the enormous stakes that are on the line. I think playing match after match after match with such, again, enormous stakes, I think that will ultimately take its toll, and I think that will be a challenge for Novak. But the reality is, this is an Olympic year, and that came with some positives and some negatives. It's a double-edged sword a little bit. Obviously, the positive was he got to go for almost history plus in the Golden Slam, which would have been great. But ultimately, I really think that there's more drawbacks to it than anything. First of all, I think that Djokovic would have loved to focus on the Olympics even more than he was able to. But because this Wimbledon was obviously so incredibly important, and it'll always be important, just the nature of the scheduling of the Olympics, Novak wasn't really able to focus on the games. And I think, I think the games are something that means so much to Novak. He wants to represent his country in the best way possible. And it just was impossible for him to do that just based on the schedule and the amount of exhaustion and fatigue he was facing, combined with, I guess, the conditions in Tokyo, in addition to that, being so particularly oppressive, meaning that it was going to take something extra physically to ultimately prevail. So I'm reminded, and I want to close with this, with something that my friend Joel Drucker has continuously and helpfully reminded me of throughout this kind of Golden Slam quest, which is that when Steffi Graf did it, Steffi Graf got to win all four majors and then play the Olympics at the end. And it really felt like a cherry on top, and the most important work was already done. She already had the Grand Slam, and then she went to make it golden and successfully did so. This was not set up as well for Novak, because not only did he have to go for that cherry on top, although albeit something that meant a lot to him, not only did he have to do that really wedged not only in the middle of his Grand Slam quest, but along the home stretch, the last leg of his Grand Slam quest. So he loses a chance at the Olympics because unfortunately it was so close to Wimbledon. And then not only that, but it compromises his U.S. Open preparation as well. You got to zoom out and you got to think that this is just extremely challenging. So what does this all mean? It means that things are harder. This is not supposed to be easy. This is the Grand Slam. If Djokovic overcomes all this, it's how it is. It's a monumental task. It's not easy. And the Olympics have clearly made it harder on Novak Djokovic when it comes to the U.S. Open, and we'll have to see how it plays out and how the unconventional and the suboptimal preparation will ultimately affect Novak Djokovic. But in the same breath, if he is fully recovered, if he is mentally rejuvenated, physically rejuvenated, he'll obviously have a great chance at making history at the U.S. Open. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.